Today's guest is Bernard Hammonds. He's the QA, QC, and commissioning manager at DynaTen Corporation. Bernard, thank you for coming on the show.
Awesome. Hey, Tats, thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it. Definitely looking forward to getting to talk with you about a few things.
Yeah, absolutely. And we met through Jesse's, I guess bungee jumpers group, which is always good. I think within construction, there's always this kind of there's a lot more collaboration and communication around different sort of trades and job functions and worlds, I guess, because some of these construction areas don't necessarily overlap that much, or at least as much as they should.
Yeah, construction is definitely unique in the amount of players involved, right? I always like, using sports analogies, and I guess this would be kind of a corny one, but if it was a football team, right, we've got, so many linemen, so wide receivers, a quarterback, and a running back. Well, imagine if we had a rugby player, a soccer player, a an ice skater, all on the field at the same time. What kind of game are you playing here? And and it's just all these different people and divisions trying to build this one thing together, and it's a mass mess of stuff happening all at once.
Absolutely. And your contribution in your area is, I guess, on the fluid side, plumbing side of things. That's where you've developed your expertise.
Yeah, I so I work for a mechanical contractor in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and we specialize in the mechanical side. So you've got your plumbing and mechanical. So the plumbing, domestic water and sanitary and stuff, but then we also have mechanical. So all of your heating and cooling, ventilation, and things like that as well.
Yeah. So going back to your analogy, you said, I think you said football team. You have all these
Yeah.
different roles and people, or different sports coming
Mhm.
together, and you have to somehow get it to work. Now, I'm always
Yeah.
curious about that because, even within a company, you have different functional skills and all that sort
Sure.
of thing. So, I mean, in your experience having to work and navigate this, what have you learned over the years?
Oh man, that's a very broad question, and it's a good one. I've learned that people fit in that team very differently. And sometimes if you don't have them in the right position, it may cause, kind of issues getting to the ultimate goal. In sports, the ultimate goal is to be the winner, right? Um, and there's different ways of getting there. You got to practice, you've got to tune your skills. You've got to be able to put it all together when it's actual game time. So throughout my years, really what I've learned and gathered, and I'm still learning, hopefully I will always be learning, have that open mindset, is that everybody has a role to play. And sometimes, whenever someone may not be in their role that fits them well, that's going to be where you find your contention or your issues. Things aren't going as smoothly as they potentially could be. So, um, really, to kind of wrap it all up, is throughout my years, I've kind of taken a look from the outside and seeing where, hey, there's some people that work well together in certain functions, and certain tasks. How do we continue to utilize that person and keep them happy doing that? And then are there times where they want to do something different and new? How do we get them to practice and train them to do that function somewhere else on a different game or a different project?
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
maybe not immediately jumping to conclusions saying, oh, they're not a good culture fit and stuff like that, but looking at it maybe closer and say, hey, are they in the role they want?
Yeah.
Or maybe they were a fit before, maybe something in their life changed. Examining that closely. Is that what you're saying?
You are absolutely correct. And I'm one person who likes to read a lot. I I always tell my children, learn to love to read and run. And I kind of take that to heart because you open up a whole new world of, thinking whenever you're able to just kind of see where those processes may live elsewhere and apply that to your own life. Um, and a lot of times, depending on what you read, I read a lot of technical stuff. So what I was doing, whenever I brought it to work, it was very technical based. Like people were like, "Oh, you put everything on a spreadsheet." I'm like, "Well, yes. Isn't that the way everybody does it?" And it's not. It's not. There's a human side of things, and I just it took me so long to like realize this, even in like my personal life. Like me and my wife, we read a book, the love languages, and it went beyond like just love. It was how you think, and a big like portion of it, what I received was how do you thank people and or apologize to people. I never thought that would be part of it. And so I'm going out wide here, but to bring it back is finding people's what drives them and motivates them in life. You have to get to that core, and it's not always by just one book. There's many different ways to get to that person's core, find their value, and find what they love to provide in life.
Yeah. I mean, can you think of any examples where, there was a alignment thing that, got fixed by just, understanding better, or maybe, communication or appreciating people differently? Can you think, you said, you do spreadsheets. Not everyone does that. Are there any examples or stories you can think of where, the project was going a certain way, you found some sort of alignment fix or insight or provided options that sort of made it work?
Yeah, me being having a engineering background, solving those problems is kind of what we love to do. We like to get in there, the nitty gritty. Hey, what's the problem here? What can we do to fix something? Um, a lot of that kind of coincides with project management, which I was a large number of my years at DynaTen, and so um, one particular issue, I don't know if I want to call it an issue. I would say challenge. I was working on a art museum for University of Texas at Dallas, and we were, of course, schedule is always a challenge in itself, but we had a particular challenge with our duct testing standards. Um, this particular standard was something that was a little bit older. Some of the industry standards have been updated, and what we actually do now are based off of other calculations. So, me being the spreadsheet guy, I created this big old spreadsheet, and it was able to take the length of ductwork and analyze how much leakage and all this other stuff. And I'm showing it to everybody, and they're like, "Okay, that's great. What does that help us do?" And I'm like, okay, let's tackle this a different way. Let's let's draw this up. Now they typically color in their drawings and stuff like that, and they'll do some of their calculations and whatnot. But I wanted to kind of streamline that process. So internally, we had a program where we were status tracking our job, and I would take that particular program, and I would say, "Hey, all I need you to do is go ahead and click which areas you would like to test, and it's going to automatically spit out all this information for you, so we can kind of reduce the amount of time it's taken for us to do all these calculations and stuff like that, and then we don't have to deal with spreadsheets." So things like that, coming up with different options for people to be able to in the end deliver that premium craftsmanship is just something that drives me. So
Yeah.
uh,
I'm always wondering, there's problems, and sort of dealing with things that come up on the fly, but then there's system changes and things that, could yield to more like permanent or repetitive improvements and stuff like that. I mean, with your different roles, do you have a free hand in it? Do you have to get certain people involved? How are new ideas and implementation handled in your experience, or how should they be handled?
Well, I would say that's definitely a big challenge. Getting the buy-in is particularly challenging, even for myself. That's one thing. Being my senior actually got really deep in about is because I do have a lot of energy in bringing forth all these different options for people. Especially if we're utilizing new tools, digital tools, computers, tablets, whatever you may have. And so um, when you're, I would say, attempting to continuously improve, um, a lot of people kind of step back because they look back and say, "Well, have I been doing something wrong?" Or they take it personal, and um, that right there is something that you have to kind of judge by their reactions from time to time and say, okay, it's not you, it's not me, it's, hey, are we changing for the better, or are we just changing because? And when you do that, they get uncomfortable. People get uncomfortable with change, and getting them comfortable with saying, hey, we can still provide the best craftsmanship or your work, be prideful in what you provide, just a different way. So 9 ways, or however many different ways to skin a cat, whatever they say, whatever that saying is, that's just kind of opening up that whole Pandora's box of things. That's what I like to do.
No, that's great. I love it. So
Mhm.
you have this, mind that you're looking for improvement, and I know we met through a group that pushes us to be uncomfortable and grow. But what sort of things do you do in terms of personal development and growth?
Yeah, some of the things I do, um, really looking within and trying to put myself in other people's shoes. Um, that's very hard to do because a lot of us are a little bit selfish. It's more of the I, instead of the team. And in the end, it's saying, hey, um, how do I make the sacrifice for the betterment of my team? I would say the company as well, but internally, I mean, if your team is doing good, we're working towards the betterment of the company. So finding the growth, as far as continuously doing that, is if I'm always understanding or getting to know people on a deeper level, I can better understand how they think and say, all right, well, maybe we can try it a different way, because my way is not always the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. The experience, of course, as you know, with construction, every project is different, right? If we approach every project the same, and with the same, I would say, mindset or goal with our experiences of past, we're liable to make maybe a mistake or trip up somewhere. So how do we continuously find ways to get to the end goal while providing the best craftsmanship is kind of how
Yeah.
I like to think of it.
Yeah, and you said part of that is getting to know people well. Um,
Mhm,
for me, it's not something I naturally do easily. But
mhm.
what have you learned that's worked in terms of getting to know people better so that you could have a better working relationship or collaboration or partnership, whatever you want to call it?
Okay, yeah. I typically like working one on one with people, a little bit closer knit. Um, you tend to have little side conversations with people when you're doing that. Um, you're able to kind of see their true selves when you have those one on ones. you could see their, I would say their natural or truthful reaction. You can see their facial expressions, some things that they may, hide from time to time if there's like a group of people. Sometimes they don't want to kind of be embarrassed by maybe their knowledge or their experience or their background, and uh, getting on that more personal level really shows that you're wanting to create that close knit connection with that person.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, in a
Mhm.
larger group, it may be you may feel like it's more efficient, but it may not be effective. And going one on one with, especially the people you spend a lot of time with collaborating, uh, that'll lead you some better results, I guess.
Yes, yeah, typically does, or at least in my experience.
Awesome. All right. For your area that you're kind of pursuing right now, I always
Mhm.
like the QA, QC area. What have you learned there? What can the average person learn from that? Because you've gone from project management to QA, QC. What have you learned there? How could that be applicable to other things that we're doing, even if we're not in that area?
Oh yeah, yeah. So QA/QC. I guess I could back it up a little bit more than that. I studied industrial and systems engineering, and so my background really came from a place of how do you make everything work together. And we had a strong manufacturing study when I went to Texas Tech, and I ended up, of course, in the oil field. But how do you apply those methods, those understandings to not only different industries, but your everyday life? So I really start basic with people whenever I explain it. QA of QA/QC is the proactive side, preventing the errors from happening in the first place. That means you're planning, you're making your strategic workflows and things like that, your means and your methods, and then the QC part, the quality control, is verifying that your work has been done as you either were contracted to do or what you said you were going to do. And there's ways of doing that. Verification is an internal process that we utilize, whether that be on checklists, check sheets, um, and through testing. So testing is another way of making sure that, hey, is the system put together correctly? um, if you hook up your domestic water system and you've got leaks everywhere, well, something did not go right. um, had the QA side of things properly had been properly followed, then you would hopefully have a lot less of the issues on the control side whenever you're testing, and then you're going into your validation. So validating really is providing some type of proof that your work was complete to that customer, to the owner, the buyer, the end product person, that customer.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, I always wonder, like with the QA QC, how much of it is custom? How much is it based on industry standard? How much creativity and innovation goes into that process?
That's a great question. Great, because you have a lot of different standards to build things, right? Excuse me. Manufacturers have to build to certain specifications, right? For say for copper pipe, right? You need your pipe to be able to meet a certain standard so it doesn't burst at 80 psi. So that's kind of like the first level. Once everybody's on that same standard, well, then you've got your processes in place. With plumbing, how do you put together a sanitary line, right? There's a process to do that, and that's why you go to school, or that's why you have an apprenticeship, and then you have a licensor where you take the test and you do all the other good stuff. So you're also tested on how do you do these things properly. So across the board, there is a baseline standard. Um, then you get into what the customer or owner needs. So as the design engineers and architects start to build this thing out of, fruition, or a dream, or however, or some type of need. It could be like a hospital or something like that, right? Areas are growing, especially here at DFW. We do a ton of hospital work, and of course data centers. Data centers are getting very big here. um, but uh, those projects have specific needs, your requirements and things like that. So above and beyond the typical baseline, plumbing, or sheet metal, your mechanical systems and things like that, heating and cooling. Well, how do we um, specifically put it together to meet the requirements of that owner? And that's where we are able to come in and say, hey, let's analyze this. Let's come up with ways that we can standardize our work, and bring that level of craftsmanship to complete the end goal, which is providing that customer or client with the best product in the end.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. If you were to go back and give your younger self some advice, like, in any way, it could
Yeah.
be things that you do, closer or later in your career or earlier in your career. Like, what would you tell your younger self?
Man, there's a lot of things. Invest in Bitcoin early. That would be probably the first one. Yeah, I mean, it's outside of that, career related is wow. I had to think about that a little bit because how about this?
Yeah.
Uh, Never close a door of opportunity.
Ooh.
Yes. So what does that look like? That looks like, hey, I don't want to do this because it's not part of my task here. Um, or hey, I don't want to learn about the electrical system because we are mechanical and plumbing primarily, right? Well, when you do that, you're kind of shutting off all of the parts of the team. If I go back to my analogy of the sports team, right? If I was a lineman, so to say, on a football team, if I don't care what the receiver is doing, then I'm not going to know what's probably the best way to block for this upcoming play. If I know the play is going to the right and I, shift over to the left, I end up running into my guard or my center, and next thing you know, our quarterback is getting tackled. So kind of understanding how we all work together, and I don't have to know everything, right? I don't have to know the minute details of how the electrician bends the conduit and runs their lines and things like that. I don't need to know like how to connect, but knowing where they come in the flow process, the workflow, with me, I can better understand how to prepare our project, our procedures with them in place. So yeah, never shut an open door. I mean, it's always be open to learn. So that's
Yeah.
what I would kind of give my advice to my younger self.
Yeah. Interesting. And I guess, in that sense, if you're recruiting or looking for people that have been part of some type of team,
Mhm.
or learn how to be a good teammate, must be especially valuable in construction.
Yeah, it definitely is, especially with quality control. So quality control, which I'm starting to learn a little bit. People have a different perspective of quality control, kind of like we're the police. And I, I grew up reading, and studying all of the technical stuff. Your Six Sigmas, how to reduce variability, your probabilities, and all this other stuff, all this technical stuff, putting all the mathematics and science behind it, right? All the numbers, all the data, gathering all the data, see where we can figure out the 80-20%, right? Like, 80% of your issues come from, 20% of your problems and stuff like that. That's all well and fine, but um, if you're not actually understanding, or if you're not getting out there with the people and, like I said, going back and getting personal with them and getting to know what the piece of the puzzle that they provide, then it becomes a situation where you go out there and they become more defensive. Um, they look at you as if, hey, you're saying my stuff is wrong, when I actually want to work with you to say, hey, what can we do here uh, to make this premium or of high quality? And what is that quality? That could be a number of things based off the end user, right? A maintenance guy may not care what piping looks like. It doesn't have to be the prettiest piping, but they want to be able to access that valve very easily without having to get into a circus position to cut off the system if something is going wrong. Or like the art museum, which was a real visual. So we want to make sure that we're running the pipe, plumb and square to the walls. So when people are seeing this and they're going through and they say, wow, this is a very neat, nice, controlled building that was built here. So in the end, quality control helps us get to that end goal and provide something that the customer is enjoying. They feel that they got a lot of value for, and we're here to support the project teams to get there.